over empty ring.
And welcome back to Red Card. I'm your host, Anthony Totera. Thanks again to TFC General Manager Tim Bazbachenko joining us just before the commercial break. And also thanks again to head coach of Sporting Kansas City, Peter Vermes, taking time out of his busy schedule to talk to us about the upcoming season. But right now, it is my pleasure to talk to a legend in MLS and a guy that everyone knows, head coach of San Jose Earthquakes, Dominic Kinnear. Coach, welcome.
Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm very good, and pleasure's all mine to have you on. Let's talk, Coach, about your offseason first and foremost. We know that players, coaches, and general managers in the offseason, really, there isn't much time in any leagues, and, you know, you get right back at it. What did you do, Coach, in the offseason, you know, maybe just to unwind with family? Did you take off, and did you just forget about the game?
Only for about a week. It was between Christmas and New Year's, and I try to go up to Lake Tahoe every Christmas time and go for a little bit of skiing and play in the snow with my kids. And that's what we did. But in between that, or you said before that and after that, it was all trying to get the team better for the upcoming season.
Outstanding. I want to ask your thoughts on this as well. I asked Coach Peter Vermes, and he brought it right out there in the open that the game is changing today. It's evolving. And as a head coach, you've got to keep on top of things and keep learning. And he was saying that he, in the offseason, wanted to learn more about millennials and how they, go about their daily routine and their daily life. Is there something that even an experienced coach like yourself maybe learned in the offseason that you'd like to do better?
Well, yeah, I mean, funny enough, I, along with Greg Vanny and some other MLS coaches, are involved in the U.S. Soccer Pro A course, which I took just after the draft and the combine in Los Angeles. And coach, don't think you know it all, but you think you have a good grip on a lot of things. But
we're just having a little bit of trouble with your line, Coach. I guess the cell phone is cutting in and out. We didn't hear your answer. Can you repeat it again, Coach?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Yeah, I'm in this hotel in Arizona, and I think my room might be bordering California. I'm so far from away from the hotel, so I think of my cell service may be a little bit difficult, so I apologize for that.
That's all right. But we were talking about,
Yeah, sorry. And to answer your question, yes, I wanted a couple of trips to watch some games. Obviously, you want to see the trends and what's happening around the world. And then from a learning point of view, I signed up for the U.S. Soccer A Pro course, the coaching license, which also Greg Vanny is a part of. And it was nice to be able to sit around with a lot of other coaches and share some ideas and obviously learn some tools that you can hope make you better in the upcoming season. I'm interested to hear what Peter said about the millennials. Peter and I are really good friends, so I'm going to ask him about that when I see him the next couple of days.
You should, because I was actually really shocked and surprised he brought that up. But, I'm a parent of two boys, and my sons, obviously, and as today's generation is, they're very social media savvy, and they look at things totally different than we do, Coach. And a lot of these young people that live in, let's say, in the big cities don't even want to drive anymore. They just want to take transit.
Yeah, I have two teenagers as well. Actually, I have three teenagers, and they're all a little bit different. But the one thing they're all very in tune with is the social media. They all follow the team and all the teams in MLS. And I think probably Peter would agree that, the attention span of the millennials these days, it comes in little quick hits from what they see in their telephones. So, and I think a lot of these, the players now are much the same. So I think the trend from teenagers to young adults, it is those attention spans. You got to keep them on their toes a little bit. And I'm sure that's the reason why Peter did the research that he did.
I've spoken to head coach Greg Vanny a number of times. I think he's a top quality guy on and off the pitch. And I'll ask you, as I asked also a couple weeks ago, the head coach of Chicago Fire, Veljko Paunovic, and I want your thoughts on this. An open door policy, I believe, anyway, in talking to a lot of pro players is important to them. Communication, telling them whether they're going to start or not, and why they're not going to start, and why maybe they're coming off the bench. You as a coach that has coached hundreds of games and played as an international, how important is that to have that open door communication to explain why and how you came about making that decision?
Well, I think it's huge, and I think it's one of the reasons why the young coaches age so quickly, because there is an open-door policy. Sometimes the message that you're giving to the player is not one that they want to hear. But I think as long as you're honest about it, and I think if you feel, if you're sincere with everything you say to the player, and you don't go back on your word, I think that player will trust you. We have and Frank Gallup was a coach that I coached with in the early years of my coaching career. And he always said a great one, and I've always tried to stand by that, is, that the player who walks through the door, he has a mom and a dad, and as dads, I think you want what's best for your kids, but you also want the person they're working for to be honest with them. So that's always in the back of my mind when I have the meetings with the players that I do.
Coach, let's talk about this season, getting ready in the preseason now. You're looking at, I'm sure, a few guys that can fill in and help out. Maybe someone surprises you and tries to win a starting spot. Your back end is solid. A lot of quality veterans. Marvell Wynn, who's been on our show. You've got Victor Bernardez, who is a rock-solid leader. He'd go through the wall for any one of his teammates. Let's talk about that back end. And also, up front, Chris Wondolowski. All the guy does is finish, and he has done that year in and year out. And to me, there might be a little bit of a concern that you might need some help up there with him. Your thoughts?
Well, there's not a little bit of concern. You're being very kind. There's a big concern as far as that goes, because you look at Chris, and not to say you're going to stamp him in for double-digit goals, but he does produce that every single year. And the last couple of years, our next top goal scorer was either 5 or 6. And I think, as you know, when you're covering Toronto, you have 2 or 3 goal scorers who are up around the 10 plus, and it makes you a more dangerous team. So in the offseason, we have a couple players coming in. We did sign Marcos Arena, who's a Costa Rican international, plays center forward. It's going to add to our forward line. And I think if you look at someone like Simon Dawkins, who I think had a real good year for us last year, but we want a little bit more production from him. And I think for us to be a playoff contender, we're going to need at least those double digits from Chris, as he is such a good finisher. Our back line is really good. I mean, and also led by, which I think is one of the better goalkeepers in MLS, and David Bingham. But for us, I think the defensive side of things, we've always been pretty sharp. I'm not going to lie to you, the last couple of years going forward, we've been a little bit dry. And I think it needs to come from various sources, because we do know that Chris will get his double digits.
Coach, I mentioned this to head coach Peter Vermes on Monday, and we talked about that Western Conference. It's deadly. You can never take a game off because it's a battle each and every week. No disrespect to the Eastern Conference. It's like a Toronto-Montreal derby every weekend in that Western Conference, and it doesn't get easier. Obviously, you know that. You've seen it. And how important is that message to get across to your players right away, as soon as the season kicks off, that you can't be dropping points, because to climb back in to a playoff spot will be almost impossible?
There, and you look at the teams in the offseason, the teams that did make the playoffs, they're all trying to rebuild and bring in some stronger players. And when you look at the Western Conference, Vancouver, I think, won the regular season conference last year, did make the playoffs, and Portland, who won MLS Cup, didn't make the playoffs. It just shows you the quick turnaround and the firepower that the Western Conference has. Now, it's important to get off to a good start, and it's important to win your conference games. So that's kind of where you make your money. The home games are hugely important, but also on the road you need to pick up at least 5 or 6 wins. It's going to make you a playoff contender. So all these things we've looked at in the offseason, and it's a thing we're going to address with the players immensely over this preseason as we head to the first game, because they have to know it every time they step on the field. It's a chance not only to better themselves personally or in front of their own fans, but also in the Western Conference, which you said, it's a real tough one.
Coach, no longer can this league be considered the retirement league. I've been covering this league since day one. I'm in touch with a lot of agents in Italy and in Spain, players, coaches. They now look at this league as a league that is a serious league and has to contend with, obviously, the crazy money from China to attract players. But how, in your mind, how in your eyes, have you seen the way it has evolved? We heard yesterday about all the expansion and all the cities that are vying for a possible franchise. We see that Pacific Northwest, Coach, Portland, Seattle, Vancouver. It's a crazy European atmosphere like it is here with Toronto, Montreal. In your estimation, in the last 5 years, how much is this league taken off for the better?
Well, I mean, taken off, it has changed tremendously. I think Toronto really kicked it off, and when they first came in with the crazy fans and the season ticket holders and the waiting list, it was just mind-boggling numbers as far as franchises go. And then the follow-up with Vancouver and Seattle and Portland, even Kansas City redoing their and revamping their complete organization has been wonderful. So the last 5 years it's been wonderful for the sport. The fan participation and the supporters groups have been tremendous. Obviously, the TV and the coverage goes with it. And then the players, like you said, it's really not a retirement league anymore. And I think the message is out. And I think, and you go back a couple of years, not to go too far back, but I think we still owe a lot to David Beckham, and the effect he's had in this league. It was a slow trickle down, but obviously the boom from our investors has made it such a loud, I think, noise on the footballing world. So, it's a wonderful league. It's grown. Obviously, the economics have gotten better. The play has gotten better. The fan participation, everything you look at, facilities. It's crazy that the changes made in the last 5 years.
Coach, you've coached in two different states now, Texas and the state of California now with San Jose. I believe those two states are unbelievably taking off in the youth level. We know that Texas, they've got a lot of pro appetite. Houston, FC Dallas, there was San Antonio in the NASL, on and on. Austin, Texas, now in California. I mean, it's going crazy out there. How important is it that we start seeing in other states that it continues on for the young American player to keep on developing, whether at a youth club or an academy, to aspire to play in MLS or even at a higher level in Europe?
Yeah, I mean, it's you're talking about a big state, a big country here, and when you mention California and Texas, you're talking about two of the states that have the bigger populations, So there are some wonderful stories out there, maybe the lesser known states, but I think as the MLS and their satellite academies kind of reach out to other places, you're going to see some better some other players making some strides from lesser known states, So I still think Middle America, when you think of Iowa and Oklahoma, Nebraska, they maybe are not being touched yet. But obviously, we know that the athletic ability of some of the young people in those states, so they turn their attention to soccer. Obviously, it's better for everybody, But I think for the most part, like you said, the higher populated states are the ones that are kind of producing the players. Let's not forget the East Coast and all the great players come out from there. But I think the academy system that's going on now is only a benefit for everybody.
Coach, let's talk about Team USA just for a bit before we let you go. And they're getting ready for some important World Cup qualifying games. Bruce Arena now taking over. And as a matter of fact, I'll tell you now that I got you on the line. When the opportunity was there that Canada didn't hire at that time Benito Floro as their head coach, I gave out my top 3 list here, and I gave it right to the president of the CSA that time. And I won't, I'm not going to shy to say it. I said the first one on the list for me would have been Bruce Arena, and right next under him would be Dominic Kinnear, because you have the experience of MLS, you have the experience of North American players, CONCACAF. I believe, and I want your thoughts on this, that if the USA can really start understanding and getting an identity, that they could be knocking on the door of a Final Four, whether in Russia or Qatar. I truly believe they have all the tools necessary. Am I off my rocker, Coach?
No, you're not off your rocker. I think they have the talent. Obviously, in a tournament like that, you need a lot of things to go your way. You need a little bit of luck. You need good help.
Oh, we just lost him again, the cell phone. Are you there, Coach? We just lost Coach again. Unfortunately, that cell phone cut out. There you go, Coach. Yeah, we got you again.
I'm so sorry. I'm trying to stand in a good area here.
That's okay.
No, I think Bruce Arena is there was an identity formed in the mid to 90s to the late 90s, and not to knock Jurgen Klinsmann, but it almost took a little bit of a different turn. I think Bruce is probably trying to bring it back to what he wants, because obviously he's the coach now. So, I think he understands the American player great, as did Jurgen Klinsmann. The results didn't go the way we were hoping, and obviously there's been a coaching change, but I think Bruce is a great guy to get the U.S. soccer right on track again.
Coach, just before we let you go, we thank you so much for your time, but I want you to talk to the young coaches out here in Toronto and in Canada and all over North America. I want you to give them some tips. I'm a parent of 2 boys. You're a parent. My 2 sons have gone through the system here, and I've seen too many times youth coaches wanting to win at all costs, that $2 trophy, that $2 medal, and forget about that young boy on the bench and not giving them the opportunity to dream and play. What advice would you give that coach before they decide that, hey, I want to coach young players out there and really make a difference? What would you say to them?
Well, I'd say first they would have to ask themselves why they want to coach. And if the reason's not for the kids, then maybe they should think about doing something. The reason is for the kids and for the kids that enjoy sport. Then you have to move on. And I think the movement on is they're being prepared as far as what you want your kids to do on a certain day, and really take joy in their progress. Obviously, you make a point. Sometimes it's all about winning and losing, and a lot of kids get turned off by that. So I think the first thing the guy has to do is, do I really want to do this? Why do I want to do it? And if all the answers are pointing away from him and to other people, then it's the first step that he can have to being a good coach.
Coach, thank you so much for making time out of your busy schedule. Good luck in 2017, and I hope hopefully one day in the offseason you could make your way up here to Toronto to talk to a lot of the young coaches and explain to them the do's and don'ts in the game, because you've been through it all as a pro and as a player. You've walked the walk, and we really, really appreciate your thoughts and your experience to our audience. Coach, thanks again, and good luck this season, my friend.
We'll see.
And we just lost him once again. But that is the head coach of San Jose Earthquakes. He is a class act and a true gentleman. He is a legend in North America. And the guy is a winner and an outstanding guy off the pitch as well. Head coach of the San Jose Earthquakes. We'll take a commercial break. Coming back, we'll tee up some other topics on my mind to discuss next week here on Red Cards. Stay tuned.